You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Hello, welcome to Tifo IRL. I'm JJ Bull, and in this video we're going to look at how Thomas Tuchel has completely transformed Chelsea from a sort of all-right team into one that's won the Champions League and looks pretty unstoppable at the moment. This is what Tuchel's Chelsea looks like. It's a 3-4-3, and there are a few principles that always apply. You've always got a back three, these guys here, protected by two midfielders, Jorginho, Kovacic, might be N'Golo Kante. So although there's a big block in the middle of the pitch, these guys are going to get right up and down the pitch to give them their width. And then you've got players like Lukaku, Havertz, Mason Mount, who can adjust how they want to play. And what you'll often find is that it looks like a 3-4-3 when they start defending, but then it becomes a different shape when they progress up the pitch. And then what you might also get is, rather than a 3-4-3, Mount comes behind Lukaku and Havertz to form a 3-4-1-2. The numbers don't really matter, they never do informations, but essentially Chelsea are very hard to beat. When Lampard was there, they did something similar. They normally played a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, but Lampard did also use a back three when he was at Chelsea. However, the difference is in how the system actually works. The formations might be similar, but the way it functions is different. And when Tuchel took over Chelsea, for example, they were in 9th place, disorganised defensively, very vulnerable to the counter-attack, which we'll look at in this video as well. Tuchel fixed that, ended up winning the Champions League, runners-up in the FA Cup final, they finished 4th, won the Super Cup. But how did he do it? Communication is one of the biggest differences, and reportedly Tuchel has just done this much better than what was in place at Chelsea before he came in. He's said to be more transparent, explains decisions to players so they know why they are or aren't playing, and there's lots more information like this available in The Athletic, which you can read by subscribing to. I would do that. But man management is absolutely vital. I mean, tactics are important, but the first thing that Tuchel did differently was his man management and communication that he did with his players. The tactical stuff is important, but how players are treated as people and employees is too. That brings us on to the tactical side of the game. Now, I want to show you a little bit of what was wrong with them before and why they shipped so many goals. Lampard's Chelsea in his first season has conceded 56 league goals. That's an incredible amount of goals to let in if you're trying to push for titles or trying to win things. And although he addressed that by bringing in players like Ben Chilwell, and he started Reece James, he started getting him in, he bought Edouard Mendy, Thiago Silva came in as well also. They were very disorganised and very vulnerable to the counter-attack, because what they did in this kind of back 4-2-3-1 formation was this kind of thing. They would try and overload one side of the pitch often. This side would be overloaded, and they'd keep this space deliberate. So this guy would always make sure there's a distance between himself and the central striker, say, because you see the 4-2-3-1, there's a 4 here, here's your 2, and then Mount would come behind, and that's your 4-2-3-1. And the idea is to overload and just cause havoc, so they would run around, rotate positions, they'd be all over the place to cause a bit of havoc. What that eventually did was you need your width, because these guys go quite central, so then you get Reece James goes up here to help give you an overlap, Ben Chilwell will come up here maybe, give you a bit of an overlap, and now what we see is exactly how the opposition were able to counter-attack them. So if there were a turnover around about here, straight away, the team in white have all these positions to counter-attack into, and teams used to do this often. It was a real problem, turnovers in possession. Chelsea were then just subjected to quick counter-attacks and were just hopelessly open and couldn't do anything about it. But Tuchel changed that. Tuchel changed this by immediately bringing in a 3-4-3. Lampard tried something similar, but Tuchel was better. And the key to it is the spacing between the players, particularly, so they were always really close together. This defensive 3 and this midfield 2 are always close together. And when Chelsea defend, they show the ball wide always. So the press will start with, well, Lukaku now, maybe Havertz and Mount, say, if they start to press up high. But what you've got is these 2 and 3 are always in a block, so there's no real space for the opposition to play through. The other thing that's interesting about it is that the wing-backs, not full-backs, wing-backs, as soon as the ball kind of starts being moved around these players at the back, they get really high and wide, and it's very aggressive, and Chelsea just seem to have overloads all over the pitch all the time, but they also are well positioned to deal with the counter-attack. If you look at the way that Chelsea were counter-attacked in our Lampard example earlier, this same sort of thing, where you had the spaces where they want to counter-attack into, out these kind of ways, in the 10 and the 9, say there's a turnover here and they want to be able to break, they kind of can't, because Kovacic looks after that, or Azpilicueta's got that covered, or Jorginho's got that covered, and there's another 2 back. There's always players over to be able to stop the counter earlier in the game. So teams find it harder to get out from the back against Chelsea, so they don't have to deal with these attacks in the first place. It's not that they have better defenders that are doing more in the box, it's that they're stopping attacks at source and are just ready to deal with a counter-attack. That's the whole thing with Tuchel's kind of idea. The other thing is that because of the way they use Mendy and they play this really high line, is if a defender, say the midfielder has the ball here as a turnover, and he plays like a ball in behind the high line, which is something that Chelsea are susceptible to because they've got such a high line. Mendy is so good at reading these sorts of passes. There's an example of this recently in the Premier League. The ball goes over the top, wherever the ball has gone. I think it's hidden by him. There it is, over the top. And by the time it's reached here and the defence are retreating to try and sort it out, Mendy's already off his line to sweep it up, essentially playing as an extra player in this system. And that's interesting to me as well, because when you look at how this kind of, you think of a 3-4-3 or a back three being a particularly defensive kind of formation, it's not under Tuchel whatsoever. Now, I'm going to draw some lines on the pitch like a serial killer, so you see what I'm talking about. Now, that's a lot of lines. I've drawn a lot of lines here, but I assure you I'm all right. But also, I've missed out the goalkeeper, and this is part of Tuchel's thinking here, is that you have these passing lanes, these kind of connections where the ball can move through, and they move as a unit, this Chelsea team. The spacing between the players is very well drilled and coached. This whole team moves up the pitch as one unit and comes back down it as a unit. When they go up and they need to show the ball wide, they compress in the middle to show the ball wide. When they attack, they're very compact in the middle, but the fullbacks or wingbacks get really high and wide. So they've always got width, and they've also got verticality from their striker. So it was Timo Werner last season. So when I'm talking about this, if you want to go from front to back quickly, that's quite a squeezed, compressed shape. Because Lukaku and Werner are so quick, you make your verticality longer. This is a bad way of saying it, but essentially because they're so quick and getting behind, your team can stretch like an accordion from small to big really quickly because they're so fast. You can put the ball over the top, bang, and suddenly you see how much more you got this line that makes them even more vertical. That's one thing that's sort of relevant. Now, with the goalkeeper, what we're saying before is that you then create two extra lines. These guys here, because the goalie moves either side of this to help form a diamond. So he helps create an extra passing lane for Chelsea. So when they're building out from the back, they've always got options. They're very hard to play against because of the way they show with the ball and where it goes, and the spacing between the players is so well drilled and coached that teams can't really get through them. So I've got a board now, which is a rough translation of a passage of play that happened against Manchester City in the Premier League this season. When Chelsea go forward, they attack with numbers, they're very quick, they're always ready to stop counterattacks. And the way they play, Pep Guardiola's talked about how it's very difficult to play against them because they show you wide, they're very compressed in the middle, and there's just no space. And they squish like an accordion, basically, is what they do. But Man City changed their shape for some of this game, because City's shape changes all the time, to a back five, and they're just lined up like this back five here with a 3 and a 2. Now in this sort of situation, there's a turnover around about here, maybe Pulisic, Werner, someone gives the ball away, it doesn't really matter. But then straight away you've got this number 8 here, and we'll say on the ball. Now City are one of the best teams in the world at escaping a high press and being able to play out, because that's one of the things they do very well. And they've got excellent movement and rotations of positions to be able to facilitate these kinds of things. But Chelsea have men back and are prepared to deal with this sort of exact situation. You can kind of see how, even though the ball's here already, you've got Ziyech looking after this maybe, you've got Kovacic in the middle protecting this, Kante's sort of around here. Basically they have numbers prepared to deal with it, but as the move progresses it becomes even more obvious. So this number 10 here is going to make this move in here, 11 is going to go to around about here, 7 is going to go to around about here to form a diamond. So this is what it looks like. Make this move, which then opens up this passing lane through to the 10. So the ball can get from here to here. They bypass this little bit with clever movement. Nothing really the Chelsea shape can do about that. It's just clever movement from Man City. And straight away, it looks like they're in a bit of trouble. What happens next? This guy ends up receiving the ball here, number 7. I think it goes out from, rather than 10, it might even go out to the 7 past Ziyech. Regardless, it goes here. They've made the diamond. They're here. Now, Christensen is basically 1v1. Azpilicueta is looking after this guy here, number 11 now. There's a boy running through. But Rudiger comes over to here, and then you've got other players who come back to help support with this. The ball eventually gets up all the way to this forward up here, and because of the way that Chelsea defend, very quickly afterwards you have Azpilicueta, Christensen, Rudiger, James even comes back to assist with this move, Kante comes back to assist with this move. In a few seconds, this is to do with the work rate and the mentality of the Chelsea players as well as their shape and the way they're geared to deal with these counters. Manchester City, who are also very good at getting forward in these quick moves, end up with, I think it's round about this many players forward, one spare on this side here. And by the time, I think as Gabriel Jesus gets into this position here, he is crowded out. Let's say they squash the middle. So even though they're a little bit expanded, They squash it immediately. They run back. Azpilicueta knows to show this guy wide. And if he does show him into here, he knows it's into a cul-de-sac. So if you show them wide, they don't take the bait and they go inside. Then straight away you've got Christensen, Rudiger, Kante, James, all ready to deal with it, and that attack comes to nothing. This is the kind of thing that they are just drilled to do constantly to make sure they're always ready to deal with a counter-attack. If there's a turnover and they have to get back, they are back immediately. It's the best accordion you've ever seen on a football pitch. So how do Chelsea score goals? They're very good defensively, but how do they score? The secret is that they get the ball from back to front very quickly. They also have really good players. And that's a small secret of football, is that you have really good players, you tend to win games. But they defend very well. They attack by getting the ball from back to front quickly. It's to do with verticality. They create spaces for others so the ball can always progress forward every pass, rather than having to go sideways. If it does go sideways, it's there to open up a pass for someone else to send it long. And we saw Romelu Lukaku has joined them recently, and he's made a bit of a difference already. We saw it particularly against Arsenal. When they build from the back three, they split very wide to make sure there's options. Remember the lines we're drawing earlier, the serial killer lines? Well, they're back again, but only in your mind, because you are now also a serial killer. Don't kill anyone. But what happens here is Kovacic is going to make this sort of bendy run. And this is an example of how bad Arsenal are at defending as well, actually. The ball goes from Christensen over to Rudiger. So that now means Jorginho pulls over a bit here. This guy's a bit lost because Arsenal players don't know how to press at the moment. Kovacic is going to make this sort of run, receives it here on the half space, and turns around with the ball and beats this guy really easily. This sort of movement is the kind of thing Chelsea players can do that lesser players can't. Because essentially in your way, you think you've got a striker in your way, he's going to block your passes, but Kovacic is so good at turning, woof. That's a man beaten. Straight away you've got an advantage because you've got a man taken out of the play. Now Lukaku here, there's a few things that happen in this situation. Kai Havertz, we think of this as being a forward three. But what Havertz does a lot, and Mount does a lot on the same side, is Havertz will readily, happily drop into these sorts of positions to create a midfield overload. And now suddenly you go from having two midfielders to three in this situation. That means he's now busy and got to think about this, which means he leaves this exact pass open for Lukaku. But Lukaku also does, to make this happen, we'll give him a bit of space here actually, is that he's going to make that forward run to arrive to the ball early. You often see in coaching, you don't wait for the ball to come to you, you go to the ball. So Lukaku's going to make this run, but when he does that, the unwitting Arsenal player, I can't remember who it was, is going to follow him. Now as he does this, he's going to follow him out tight like this. He'll step up to try and make sure they're not offside. But as this move's ongoing, we've got the ball coming in from Kovacic to Lukaku. These guys are going to just bail up the pitch. James will race up here. Alonso gets up here. So again, you've got aggression. So you've got your middle still here. Havertz, who was a wide forward a minute ago, now he's suddenly a midfielder. You've got Rudiger can push up here. Christensen can push up. Azpilicueta can push up as well. Jorginho will protect this. And then Mount will also be able to help out with the attack. You've got your width straight away. You're still squashed in the middle. If there's a turnover, they've still got the middle of the pitch protected. That's the most important bit. Now, this ball goes from Lukaku. He just lays it back straight to Kovacic. And this is what I mean, like they want to be able to make it go vertical. So the ball goes up to Lukaku, that looks like the kind of the end of the move. They can't do much here. He plays a simple ball back to Kovacic. You see there's the pass from Kovacic, ball back to Kovacic. And Kovacic immediately, because of this aggressive run from James, can play this ball out. And as soon as that goes out, it has given Lukaku the ability to then get back into this space that he wants to attack. So the ball goes out to James on this side here. He's now there. The defence is all panicked. They're trying to get back. They can't because they've been stretched and the middle's blocked. They don't know what the hell's going on. The ball comes out to James on the side. He will then be able to play one of these great passes that he excels at making. And Lukaku, as you may remember, ends up scoring a goal by being part of this move. It's all about movement, rotations, getting that free up the ball to be played from the back to the front as quickly as possible, which means that the opposite team doesn't have time to get back into their shape to defend against it. Whereas Chelsea are always set up, no matter if there's a transition, to deal with that transition at source. So if there was, say the ball was turned over, here, and they want to attack, these are the rest of the guys might be pushed up at this point, you're still going to have Rudiger, Christensen, Azpilicueta protecting against these three, Kovacic and Jorginho in the middle of the pitch. And again, it looks like the middle of the pitch is blocked. It almost seems like Chelsea always have an extra player on the pitch. And it's just the way that the system moves and the way they freely interchange with other players to make that sort of happen. So, I mean, there's other examples of goals like this. The Champions League final that Chelsea beat Manchester City. One of the goals they scored went from goalie out to left wing back, inside to a midfielder who then just pinged it forward to Havertz, who ran from deep. There's lots of verticality in these attacks, which makes them harder to deal with. Teams like Manchester City can't deal with them. They're basically amazing. And the weird thing is that they've probably got better with Lukaku in there. Tuchel took over a team that was, I think it was 9th in the Premier League, turned them into a Champions League winning, definitely title chasing side with the UEFA Super Cup as well. There was every chance they end up winning the lot this season. They've got it all there at the moment. And as long as they keep the momentum going and they're able to make these things go before someone figures out a way to stop it, that always happens in football. They're pretty much going to win every game forever, and that'll never change. So that is what I say about Chelsea. They're amazing. Thomas Tuchel has done a phenomenal job, and they're great fun to watch. And that's Chelsea. Thanks for watching, and have a lovely time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Manchester United reporters revealed the truth behind the club's Jadon Sancho transfer fiasco, where the Tottenham reporters brought you news of Gareth Bale's return before anyone else, where the Chelsea reporters told us 3 days before his sacking that Frank Lampard was on the verge of losing his job. And you can try it now for free for 30 days. See the link in the description.